Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new ITM Platform training session. My name is Rene Alvarez, and I'm going to be your trainer for today. Today's topic is going to be Power BI and Excel reporting. We are going to cover technical topics on how to extract information from ITM Platform and how to bring it over Excel and or Power BI. You're going to see that both tools will work in the same way. So the principles that we apply to one is going to be completely valid for the second one. This session, although is of pretty much any ITM Platform user interest, it is mainly aimed for technical users or advanced users that can create medium to complex queries in Power BI and or Excel, okay? So again, we are going to cover things like consuming the API, endpoints, payloads, and all the data that we can extract from ITM Platform. As usual, let me remind you that this training session will grant you 1 credit towards the certification. If you are interested in this certification, you will need to get 10 credits. You can get them by attending this training, these bi-weekly training sessions. You can get 1 credit also by using ITM Platform for an entire month, or you can get directly the certification if you take a training course from one of our partners with a duration over than 10 hours. All right, so with that, I'm going to get started on today's topic. So ITM Platform is a great tool for managing our projects, correct? It will help us creating projects, controlling projects, giving us visibility on the schedule, on financials, resources, and a lot of different things. And although although ITM Platform will provide you with some techniques, some features to display data, it is not an analysis tool, okay? ITM Platform has some reporting capabilities with default dashboards, internal reports, customizable dashboards, but sometimes we really need to go deeper. We need to analyze the information for our projects or resources, and we need to conduct analysis in more complex ways, right? So that's where Power BI and Excel will come into place, because they will allow us to pull the data from ITM Platform and create complex analysis scenarios, okay? All right, what do we need to know in order to create those reports? Let me let me first go to our environment, okay? And I'm going to explain a couple of things around the data that we can get, okay? As usual, I'm going to use a full access user, so we have access to everything, right? From the management area, for example, maybe we are interested in projects, correct? So one easy way of extracting data from ITM Platform is whenever I see one of these tables, I usually have a way to export that table into Excel. So it is as complicated as displaying the columns that I want and then click on Export to Excel. This will create an Excel file, right? And then if I open it directly, I'm going to see exactly the same information provided inside a view. So this is one quick, very easy way to extract data from ITM Platform. This is exported data, okay? So that is another challenge. If for some reason one of these projects changes and they have a different value for percent completed or assessment, or maybe another column that I'm interested in, I'm not going to see this information updated in my Excel file, correct? Because I'm exporting the data, okay? What happens if I would like to include extra columns? Well, again, inside ITM Platform, I typically have the ability to bring on other columns. For example, maybe I'm interested in displaying the type or the status or the priority. So if I include those extra columns, when I export it to Excel, it's going to include those extra columns for me. Okay. But again, what we want to do is a little bit different. What we want to do is query ITM Platform somehow and extract the raw data, okay? So for that, we need to make use of the API. So first, let me show you where the documentation on the API is. If I navigate to the main ITM Platform web page, okay, all the way down, we're going to find the developers area, okay? Or if you want to access it directly, it is developers.itmplatform.com. In here, we have the documentation for API and extensions, customizable extensions. Today, I'm going to refer basically to the API, right? So what is the API? The API is a collection of functions, a collection of various ways of interacting with the data inside ITM Platform, okay? And I can use it to create custom scenarios. I can use it to create interfaces with other systems. And of course, I can use it for Excel or Power BI as analysis tools, all right? So let me show you first what is in here. In the documentation area, okay, I'm gonna find a collection of technical articles that will allow me to create those queries. The first 4 elements on the page are very, very important, and I would strongly recommend you to read them thoroughly, just to make sure that you understand exactly how to create such queries. The first part is about authentication. Even if all the URLs or the endpoints we're gonna talk extensively about endpoints, even if those endpoints are kind of public, okay, I need to authenticate myself against ITM Platform in order to pull the data, okay? So authentication is really one of the most important ingredients in this. Whenever I try to get data from ITM Platform, or I would like to update a project or update a task, I always need to provide some form of authentication, okay? The authentication is done first by querying this particular endpoint, the login endpoint. I'm going to show you how to do it step by step, okay? So don't worry about it. First, I'm describing how we are going to make such calls. So this first authentication endpoint will require an API key, okay? This API key is specific for each user, right? Each user can have his or her own API key, okay? It's unique for that user, and it is very important to use it because the API key will get me access to my projects, to my resources, to my tasks, to whatever I can access inside ITM Platform. Okay, so this first call will allow me to include the API key, and in return, what ITM Platform will return when the query is successful is a token. This token represents a temporary key, okay, that tells ITM Platform that I was successfully authenticated for a period of time, and I'm allowed to query other data sources like projects, like tasks, like baselines, like risks, issues, etc. Okay, so that is the first part. Second element in here, we have 2 different versions of API calls. We have version 1 and we have version 2. Whenever available, we strongly recommend the use of version 2. Version 2 typically is going to be more reliable, is going to be faster, is going to be, it will include extra features, for example. It will allow you to tailor the query or control it in better ways. If version 1 is the only one available, don't worry, you can use it safely, right? But it is important to know when you are using version 1 and when you are you using version 2, okay? The main difference, as you can see, is just this v2 as part of the URL before the company URL, okay? So from now on, I should be able to start building my endpoints, okay? We called endpoints as to the full URL that will get me some answers, that will get me some data, okay? Let me give you the simplest example. If I would like to authenticate, right, I need to call the login endpoint, but this goes after the main URL. So let me show you how to build it. Let's open a notepad, okay? And what I would need to do is, for example, this authentication is just version 2. And I know that because there is no reference as to version 2, right? So when there is no reference to version 1 or version 2, it means that the call is version 1, right? So what I'm going to do in here is create my URL. My URL would start like https colon // and then api.itmplatform.com / and then I need to include the name of my instance, the name of my environment. Okay, how can I know the name for my environment? Well, that is really easy. If I go to ITM Platform, okay, the name of the company is directly after .com. Okay, I'm going to use this one for my samples. Okay, so I would need to add in here the name of that specific environment. And then I need to complete the URL with the endpoint. In this case, it's going to be / login / and then my API key. All right. Now, what about the API key? Where can I get it? Especially if I don't have it. Okay. So when you are working inside ITM Platform, you can always go to your menu, right? Click on your profile. And by the way, let me switch to English because right now it's displaying my environment in Spanish. All right, here we go. So if I go to my profile, right, the fourth tab on this details page is going to be the API key. This will tell me if I already created an API key. Now, one thing that you need to know is that once created, the API key cannot be retrieved again because this API key is encrypted, okay? So when you create it, save it on a safe place, okay? So you can keep on reusing it. But let's say that for some reason you lost it, right? You don't know it anymore. Well, it's as complicated as clicking on this button to recreate an API key. ITM Platform will provide you with a new API key, right? And from now on, you can use that one for your queries, all right? Okay, so I already have mine on another side. Just give me a second, okay? I'm going to use it for the complete URL. So this would be the entire URL that I need to include if I would like to authenticate myself against ITM Platform, all right? Okay, so let's see it in action, okay? Let's start combining this technical information with something that is actually achievable in our tool. So I'm gonna start with Excel, just because Excel is easier to understand than Power BI, okay? It requires less technical skills. What I'm going to do is create an empty book, okay? And then I'm going to go to the data tab. And from the data tab, I'm going to start directly the Power Query editor, okay? Power Query is really the key of everything that we're going to discuss today. Through Power Query, we will be able to build the queries that will extract information from ITM Platform, okay? This is our Power Query editor. Now, how can I get started? Because looks like it's empty, right? I need to start somewhere. That somewhere for the case of ITM Platform is going to be the advanced editor. I need to be able to create manually at least the first part of my queries, and then I can continue using clicks and drag and drop and all these fancy things inside Power Query. So what I'm going to do in here is select new source, okay? And inside other sources, I can always ask for a blank query, okay? This is my next recommendation. start with a blank query because you will need to code certain things. Again, please remember this session is very technical. I want to keep it easy, but still we need to face the technical aspect of extracting data from ITM Platform. Now, this is my first query. Let's rename it. Okay, I don't want query 1. I'm going to rename it to something like, for example, projects. I would like to extract projects. Let's get a list of projects. All right. So again, I need to edit it in the advanced editor. For that, I can click on this advanced editor button, or I can right click my query and select the same option, advanced editor. And this is the advanced editor for Power Query. It will allow me to write down queries in a very specific language, Power Query M. If you are interested in this sort of techniques, I would strongly recommend you to go to the Microsoft Technical Library, where you can find a lot of different articles and guidance about how to make use of the Power Query M language. Okay, I'm going to try to keep it simple. The query consists of 2 parts: a let, where my transformations will happen, and an in clause that will identify the result of my queries. So basically, I need to work inside the let. Okay. And the first thing that I'm going to do is create the name of the result. I always create results in Power Query. And to the right-hand side of the equal sign, I'm going to create my transformation. I'm going to name this first step as to authentication. Okay, I can name it whatever I want. And again, right, I need to write down a special query that will make use of the endpoint that I just created. However, I cannot simply copy and paste. Let me show you what happens. If I simply copy and paste, okay, I'm going to get an error, right? I have syntax errors, right? I could try to encapsulate this sentence in double quotes to let Power Query know that this is text, but then it's completely meaningless, right? It doesn't mean anything. I need to transform this into an actual query that goes over the internet, connects to ITM Platform, authenticates myself, and returns something, okay? Return something back. And that something is explicitly explained in our documentation. When I create the login query, okay, I would need to get a response that will include at least these elements: a token number, a user ID, result, and result status. So this is what I'm expecting to have, okay? So let's get it. And let's try to combine this documentation with what we are trying to build inside Power Query. So again, let me put it to the side, okay? So we can see it better. All right, let me reduce this so we can see both things on the same place. Let me discard. Yeah, something like this. So we can see them at the same at the same time. All right, so I'm gonna go back to Power Query, and from here I'm gonna create a new blank query. I want to name it. I want to name it projects. Okay. Right click and go to the advanced editor, and then I said authentication. All right. So let's check this information out. The documentation tells me that the response is going to be on a very specific format. That format is named JSON. Okay. Don't worry about this to be too technical. JSON is this structure, right? JSON is a collection of paired values, right? I have a name, and to the right, I have the value. So one element is token, and this is the value. One element is user ID, and this is the value. One element is result, and this is the value, right? So that structure is named JSON. So what I need to tell Power Query is that it's gonna try to interpret and receive a JSON document, a JSON response. Okay. So that is what I'm going to type in here, JSON document. Okay. Now, this JSON document assumes that I already have the JSON text, and I don't have it. Okay. I need to get it from ITM Platform. Okay, and for that, I need to create a web query. Okay, so I have another function named web contents that allows me to create that query. So this time I'm telling Power Query, please connect to the internet. You're going to use the source, right? You're going to see this information and expect a response back, right? And the parameter is simply a URL. So now let's use our endpoint that we created in here, okay? And let's see what happens, all right? So what I'm saying again is create a web content query with this endpoint, right? And what you're going to receive, interpret that as a JSON document and save the result in the authentication transformation step. And now if I want to see the result, instead of source, I'm going to use authentication, okay? And then I'm going to click on ready. What happens? What happens is exactly what the documentation tells me that is going to happen. I'm going to receive a body of the response. I have now a token, a user ID, an account ID, result status, etc. Okay? So far so good. We are able to query ITM Platform. And in this case, we are only authenticate ourselves. All right? Okay. What goes next? I really don't care about it. Well, I should care about a token, right? But I'm not looking for the token. I'm looking for project data, right? So what I need to do now, from now on, is make sure that every time that I create a query against ITM Platform, I include the token as part of the headers, all right? So my queries will contain or can contain also two parts. They can contain headers and they can contain a body. For the authentication, we don't need a body, right? For other queries, I might be able to include a query. A body, right? Let's try to do that. So what I'm going to do is go back to the advanced editor, right? And then I'm going to create a second transformation step. Once I have my authentication part, okay, I'm going to add a comma and create a new transformation step. For example, let's call these projects, okay? All right. And as you could expect, the structure is going to be kind of the same. I'm going to need to interpret a JSON response based on a web query. But this time, since I would like to receive projects, then probably the endpoint is going to be different. So let's go to the projects area and check how I can query ITM Platform to get our projects. The easiest way is using version 1, right, with a /projects endpoint. As usual, okay, we start with the base URL, HTTPS, and let me copy all that, okay? Because that is what the documentation tells me to do. But then I need to query the /projects endpoint, okay? So this is the new endpoint, right? As you can see in here, I don't need to include the authentication key anymore, right? But again, I want to explain with a lot of detail how I need to authenticate against ITM Platform, because I need to do it for every query that I create. If I simply use this endpoint, let's try to use it and let's see what happens. If I tell our query that is going to receive a JSON document when it queries this particular URL, okay? And let's try to see the result in projects. So I'm going to change the in for projects. Let's see this. I get an error. We cannot authenticate. What's going on? I already authenticate myself. So why can't you open this connection? Well, again, the reason is that whenever I create a query against ITM Platform, I need to include some form of authentication. And that form of authentication is not my authentication key, my API key. It's my token, okay? I need to make sure that I include always this token on every query that I create against ITM Platform, okay? For example, if I go in here and I display the request, it tells me that I need to include a token as part of the headers. So how can I do that? This, for me, is kind of the tricky part, okay? Let me explain. For the web content function, I can include extra options, not just the base URL, which is this one. This is the endpoint that I want to use, but I can create the headers. I can include the headers. And I do that when I include a comma because I want to include another set of parameters. And then I can see in here that I can include options. All right. What options? My options are going to be inside square brackets. Okay, I'm going to call these headers. Okay. And as part of the headers, remember all this is JSON. So I always need to include the structure in this way, the name of the property and then the value. Okay. So inside the headers, I need a token. Sorry, token, uppercase, token, and token equals the result inside authentication. So what I'm saying in here, okay, actually let me reduce this, is that this element of token goes in here, right? This is the reference for that. On the authentication step, all right? That's what I'm saying in here, right? And this goes as part of the headers. And sorry, by the way, this one is uppercase. Okay, let's check if I'm doing it the right way, because I have the feeling that I'm including an extra set of brackets. Yeah, I think this is like so. Yeah, I think it is. All right. So let's check it out and see if it works. All right. No, I'm doing something wrong. Let me fix this real quick. All right. No, then just give me a second. I have this around here. Yeah, I just need to check the syntax. Okay. This one is correct. I think this is the one that does not go there. Sorry. Let's. Can it be like that? Let's check it out. No, I'm including one extra. Sorry. This is again, this is the hard part for me. So maybe I need to do it like this. Let me check. No, I still have a problem with the syntax. Just a second. I'm gonna fix it in a second. Yeah, I need to include the square brackets in here. Let me do it like that. And since this is a collection, this would need to go. I'm doing something wrong in here. Sorry, I just forgot how to create this part. Give me a second. If no, I'm gonna give you an updated version on the query. Uh, okay. Okay, I think then it is right. I think this is not, it should not be here. Let's just, all right, let's call this headers. Yeah, headers goes inside square brackets. And then I need to include headers equals, and then I need to include extra brackets. And they say token equals authentication token. Okay, I think that's it. Let's check it out. Yes, perfect. All right. So let me go back again. So here's the structure. So we need to include square brackets in here, then headers, and inside the headers, we need to make a reference on the authentication token. Again, this part is the result of the first transformation. Okay. So what happens now is that when I create that query, then I have a list of records, right? I have 17. Why 17 in this case? Because in my environment, I should have 17 projects, okay? Now, let me explain. In here, I just see 3, correct? Why is that? Because some of these projects are not active. If I ask ITM Platform to display all, right, I'm going to get 17, right? 17 items. That is exactly the same number of rows that I'm getting in here, all right? So sometimes it's going to be very, very important that you include some sort of filter, right? I'm going to show you that next, okay? From now on, let me just complete this structure so we can actually see the information about our projects. Once I get this list of records, I need to transform those into a table. So I do that by clicking on this button, transform it to a table, okay, and accept. And then each row each record goes on a specific row. And then I can expand this main structure to include the columns that I would like to see. For example, the project name, project type, project status, duration, start, and end date. Okay, so let's hit on accept, right? And as you can see, now I start to see the data coming through. A couple of things that you need to know as well. The information inside ITM Platform is very, very complex, okay? So sometimes things like project type or project status, sorry, will require you to keep on expanding, because what is the project type? Project type looks like a simple column, right? When I display it on the UI, right? It is this column, but it's actually not a simple value, right? It's going to contain a name, but it can contain also an icon, and it can contain a number of different things, right? The same goes for status or approval, right? So that's why when I display the project type column, it tells me that it has a record inside. So for each of these cases, if you wish to include them, then you need to also expand that column, right? And select what is the part of that value that you wish to retrieve. For example, just the name, okay? And now I have the specific name. And I can do the same for status, okay? Let's keep just the name, all right? On other things, dates like start date and end date will always contain a references to the time zone. Internally in the database, the data is stored in UTC, Universal Time Coordinated, okay? So at some point, especially when you are querying this from other parts of the world, you will need to somehow transform it into the proper data type, okay? In this case, I can go in here and say that the new data type is going to be date, hour, and also, the date, the time, and also the time zone, right? And since Z stands for UTC, right? Then Power Query will create the correct transformation to give you exactly that, right? So if you just want to keep the date, first, you need to identify that the value contains the time zone, and then you can transform it again, right? And add a new step to only keep the value for the date, right? Once all your transformations are done, okay, I can click on close and load, and then Excel will load the data from ITM Platform, okay? All right. Now let me introduce you to the most complex part, which is Power BI. All right. I'm going to do the same, but this time with Power BI. And I'm going to introduce you on the recommended way of querying data from ITM Platform using version 2. Okay. So I'm going to repeat this process step by step so you properly understand also our Power BI templates. Okay. All right. Let's go to transformation. And we're going to start exactly in the same way. I'm going to click on no source, blank query, all right? Let's name this. I'm going to name these first as two projects, okay? And let's go to the advanced editor. And as you can see, it's exactly the same, all right? But this time, again, I'm gonna make some modifications. Okay, let me explain. First, I'm going to create something that is named payload. Sorry, the headers. Let's create the full list of headers that we're going to need. Okay, and for headers, we're going to create a JSON structure. Okay, let's name the first part content type, like so. Okay, equals application JSON. Okay, why that? Let me display that again, because that is what ITM Platform tells me to include. Okay, this is the first part of the header. Second part of the header is going to be the token, correct? Token equals token, but token has not been created in here, right? So I will need to include that somewhere, right? To simplify things, okay? And actually, this is going to give me an error, but don't worry about it just now. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to create a second query, new blank query, named token. And this query is going to be my authentication query. All right. Let's create it in the same way as we did it in Excel. Let's call this part login, right? Let's log in. And as you remember, we need to start with JSON document. And inside JSON documents, we are getting the contents from a web query, okay, from https api.itmplatform.com, okay. And then I'm going to include an extra function, an extra option in this query, right, to reference a specific environment. Okay, I'm going to use relative path equals, and then I'm going to say / actual solutions / login. Okay. And I need to include, sorry, I need to include my API key, correct? So let's include it in here. Let's copy it there, right? So this is my web query. Sorry, it is in here, right? And then let's call token as just the part of the token. So I'm gonna get from my login the answer that is named token. And I'm going to call it token. Perfect. Right? So now, as you can see, the result of this query is that authentication token. Perfect. I'm going to reuse it now on my project's query, right? Let's go here. And now I'm creating this reference for token that is the result of this query. All right. Perfect. Now we have our header. Now, the next part is going to be to create one thing named payload. What is a payload? A payload is something that I can send to ITM Platform, in this case, to an API query, right? That will control somehow the result that I can get. So this payload is going to be created like this, right? First, I open double quotes, and then I'm going to include this curly brackets, and then I'm going to say page size. What is page size? Page size is the number of rows, the maximum number of rows that I can get from the API. ITM Platform is limited to 500. So that is what I'm saying, right? Get me the most, get me the top. Next part is going to be the filter. For example, I don't want all projects, only certain projects that will meet certain criteria, right? And I'm going to include that criteria by referencing certain columns. For example, status is completed equals, completed equals false. This means that I would like to get all projects that are not completed, okay? This will limit the number of returned rows. If we have completed projects, maybe I don't want to include them in the report. Okay. All right. Now I would like to reference the columns that I want to get. Columns. Okay. And then we are going to open also these curly brackets. And then I would like to include, and I say that with, $sign in, and the columns that I want to include. The columns are ID, okay, name, let's include type, okay? All right, let me check that this is complete. Oh, sorry, this is wrong. This should not be curly brace. This should be square bracket, okay? And in here, let's close this one. We're closing the columns. And we need to close also this last one from payload. Perfect. So all this is my payload. All right. And next, I'm going to say body, right? The body of our query is text to binary from payload. In other words, what I'm doing is transforming this structure that I typed in into a binary text, okay? And store that in body, okay? And then let's call this response. Response is going to be, now it's going to be our query. Web contents, no, not browser contents, it's web contents, okay? And for web contents, I want to use HTTPS api.itmplatform.com. Okay. And let's include, sorry, I can keep on type in here. I would like to wait a second. Yes, I would like to make a call for V2. I'm going to explain why in a second. / actual solutions / projects search. Okay. Oh, projects search. Okay. And I'm going to include as part of my options headers equals headers, right? So I would like to include this part. And I'm going to include for content my body. Okay. And yeah, one last is going to be source is going to be the transformation of this response into a JSON structure. So I'm going to say JSON document, okay, from response. All right. Let's see if this works. All right. Let's click on OK. And let's check these. All right. Something happened in here. All right. Let's check these step by step. These are our headers, content application, content type, application JSON, the token. This is the payload. And then the body, the response. All right. Here is where I see that there is something wrong. All right. Let me see. Probably is because I'm naming these headers. So let's change this for underscore. Let's see if that fixes it. The step source, step references. Wow. Okay. I might have another problem in here. Let me check. All right. So this one is okay. Web contents. Let me see if I'm making a, oh, sorry. This is HTTPS. Yeah, that's part of the issue. Excellent solutions, product search. Let me see. And no, looks like it is not doing it after all. Just check. I'm doing something wrong in here and I cannot find it. Let me review. Right, search API itmplatform.com/. Yeah, it's V2. I'm including V2. Let me show you here because this query, this endpoint references also version 1 and version 2, but the main difference is that in version 2, I can include a body on my call, so I can control what are the filters or what are the return columns. Okay, that's why I'm making it the V2 call. All right, project search. Let me check. I might be missing something in here. Headers is okay. Payload, I think it's okay. Payload is transforming to the body. For response, web contents. I think the URL is correct. itmplatform.com. Let me see if I'm missing anything extra in here. Let me delete this part. And let's check just the response. Now, looks like in this step is where I'm making a mistake. Let me recheck web contents. V2. I think it is okay. Let me recheck in here. All right. Yes, it's telling me invalid token because I'm not including the authentication, but the endpoint looks okay. So I'm not understanding why my query is not doing it correctly. Okay, no worries. Let me just copy my reference. Okay, so we can explain it with the reference. So I'm gonna delete this token. It's gonna be recreated in a second. Let's delete this one as well. Okay, and I'm gonna copy my reference. All right, let me just rename all these API.platform. Okay, and Power BI is gonna be all solutions. okay, and my API key. Let me explain what I'm doing, right? In this case, I'm using a list of parameters so I can reuse certain aspects of my queries. If I go to a token, right, it's still working, right? If I go to projects, let me rename this, projects, and let's refresh. Yeah, looks like it's giving me another error. All right, let me check in here. And probably I did not thought about this. Let's set the privacy level to organizational so those can be combined. Okay. And let's refresh. Okay. Well, sorry about this. Today it is not working for some reason. I'm probably doing something wrong in terms of my authentication. Usually when I see this error, it is because I'm combining different sources, okay? And those sources inside Power Query cannot be properly combined. Let me check one more time. Because this one works, but this one does not. It's forcing me to rebuild all the it's forcing me to rebuild uh, the source, but the source should be correct. All right, I'm pretty sure that I'm creating an error based on authentication. However, let me show you one extra thing that I wanted to show you. We already have certain templates, okay, that will use the same technique, and you can download them, right? Instead of doing what I'm doing here, starting from scratch, you can go to our help center, search for Power BI, okay, and in here you're gonna find certain downloads, right? These are like different version of the same template. If you want the full template that contains everything, you can download this one, right? And here are the instructions on how to use it, right? It's basically rename the instance that you're going to use, enter your API key, and that's it. The template will take care of querying projects, tasks, issues, risks, purchases, and revenue, right? So you can get started with this, even to publish them to the Power BI service. Those templates, let me show you a sample because I think I have a sample in here prepared. Like, just a sec. All right, no, I don't have it in there. Let me open directly the source. Let's go to Power BI and let me open this one, which contains demo data. I want to show you the internals, right? So you see it's basically the same content. Okay, let's go to Power Query, right? And we are using exactly the same approach, right? We use a parameter for the instance. This is one of those which you need to change. The API key, right? Enter, type in your API key, right? And then this token and this projects query will reflect the list of projects that you have. The other queries, tasks, issues, risks, task effort, etc., will depend on extra helper functions, right? These functions will query each project that you have on the projects table. So if you have 13 projects in here, then, for example, the issues function will be executed 13 times, right? And it will create this response for issues, right? When you see this error, right, you just need to click on edit credentials, and always the base authentication is anonymous because the authentication is provided through the token, right? So you can click on anonymous and continue. Right now, I have an issue on my side about authentication. That's why it's not letting me through, right? But if you click on your side, it is going to work. All right. And of course, if you have any problems, any sort of questions around how to open the API key, you're seeing some errors, you can always write to us to support@itmplatform.com. Okay. All right. So that was what we had for today. Okay. I'd like to see if you have questions for today's session. If you don't have questions while I check them, sorry, let me share my screen again. While I check your questions, please help us reach 5 stars on Capterra. Your comments are always appreciated. Okay, let me see if we have questions. No, I don't think we have questions for today. So with that, I would like to just thank you for your time, and I hope to see you on our next ITM Platform training session. Thank you very much.